Welcome to Book Lounge by Libby. I'm Joe, and I'm so happy you're here. Today, we are continuing our celebration of Pride Month with a list of incredible books we think you should add to your TBRs. Before we dive in, comment down below some of your essential or favorite Pride reads or queer books. If you're on YouTube or Spotify, or anything you're diving into, like if there's something you want me to put on my list, I'd love to hear from you. And if you're not on YouTube or Spotify, you can also send me an email, bookloungebylibby@overdrive.com. Now, joining me today is the amazing creator over at This Story Ain't Over, Jananie. Hello, thank you for coming back.
Hi, thank you for having me back. I'm really excited for today's episode.
Oh, I'm always glad to have you here. We get up to some absolute nonsense.
We do.
And at the time that we're recording this, it's like Pride feels like tomorrow, but also so far away at the same
Yes.
time because,
Mhm.
schedules are crazy. But what does Pride Month look like for you? Is there anything you do or enjoy in
Oh.
Toronto or globally, or, do you have a Pride practice?
Ooh, honestly, that's a great question. I feel like all year is Pride.
Mhm.
Honestly, like,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's some really great, like, queer-owned, LGBTQ-owned businesses and, like, just places that I love to go to. So me and my friends are hitting those up even when it's not Pride Month. So yeah. And actually I should shout out one of our queer owned independent bookstores in
Oh,
Toronto,
yeah.
which is Glad Day Bookshop. They recently moved their location, but they are incredible. They also have like super cute like merch and stuff that's like pride and queer themed. So yes, I have quite a few from
Ooh.
there.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I love that. Well, see, and that's it. It is Pride year round. Like, we always need to put our money where our mouth is.
Mhm.
So, it's never a bad day to support a small bookstore, a local bookstore, but also a queer bookstore.
Mhm. What
It's
about you?
important. Oh, me, what do? I think similar to you, it's Pride all year round. I walk around with this pink beard, 365 days of the year. It is Pride all day, every day.
I love it.
Yeah, right. But I think for me, I try to be mindful about giving back during Pride Month. So, are
Mhm.
there places that need volunteer hours? Because while everyone is
Oh,
like,
that's
"Oh,
amazing.
this is right," well, this is my chance to celebrate and party and do whatever. I'm like, okay, can I go pick up the slack? Because I
Mhm.
don't love a big crowd.
Mhm.
The Our library system marches in the Pride Parade here in Cleveland, so like there's support on all sides. So it's just one of those things of like, yeah, what can I do this time? But I think the other thing for me is I try to take time to be reflective. I think Pride is such like a delicate balance. I
Mm.
think we want to celebrate because we want to be like, hey, we're here and this is happening. And then we also want to be speaking out, especially in,
Mhm.
these uncertain times, trademarked. Um, but also I think there's the flip side of like we have to remember where we came from. So I think
Yes,
there's a
yes.
little bit of everything. So I try to
Mhm.
very specifically give back and very specifically be thoughtful.
No, that's amazing. I love that. You're, like, so
Yeah.
intentional with it, which I love. And I feel like that's such a good thing also because I feel like we get caught up in the, everyone doing their corporate PR for Pride Month and all the marketing campaigns that get shoved at us, but, like, they're not pulling down to the real roots of
Right.
what pride means, and it's
Right.
important to do that.
Exactly. I mean, I think of what my monthly book picks look like,
Mhm.
and they're always gay. Like,
I don't want it unless it's a little gay.
I'm just here to share like horror and gay shit. Apparently, like
Mhm.
that's
No, that's amazing. You should get that on a t-shirt, like horror
right.
and gay shit.
Right. As I'm like, oh, I have a Slack to send when we end this recording. Like, hello, new merch idea just dropped.
Love it.
But I mean, I love that point because, right, we are also, even just to like take a look behind the Libby curtain for a moment, we have employee resource groups. I was one of the leaders when we were first starting them to kind of figure out what does giving back look like? And what does education look like? Because while we do have like a wonderful queer collective at Overdrive and Libby, there are also a lot of other wonderful people who just want the chance to understand and support. So lots of cool opportunities. And I think a handful of years ago, because I think we started these, might have been like 2019, like pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
hard to remember a time before. But at that time, that was about when I really became very mindful every year of this is the one time I really want to force my focus on remembrance and progress. So I think that
Mhm.
was it for me.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I also feel
Yeah.
like it was similar timeline for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. And I think now, yeah, living living out loud every day is kind of like it's constant resistance. So I also think if you like me are often living fairly outspoken, it's not a bad month to take a break. If we're running for 11 months out of the year, even if it's 11 months and 2.5 weeks and you only give yourself a week and a half to just be like, I'm nothing for a week and a half, that's okay. Like it could,
Yeah.
while everyone else is celebrating, it could be your chance to take a breather.
No, I agree. I feel like anytime a month comes around, like a
Uh-huh.
Heritage Month or
Yes.
Pride Month or whatever, and I feel like that ends up being the month where I'm like taking a break and I'm not actually, reading the specific books or doing the specific things because I end up doing them all year round. And I feel like
Right.
all year round is when everyone else is not talking about it. So I feel like I need to do it more.
Well, and
But
it's so
yeah.
funny because you have done, I think, all of the heritage months and months essentially with me this
Yeah,
season.
yeah.
We did mental health, we did AAPI month, and now here we are for Pride.
True.
And it's just like because I see that in myself as well of like, well, I'm already trying to do that all the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this month is like, while we take a break from it, we're broadcasting what you should read.
Yes, exactly.
Although you won't catch me not reading a gay book in June.
Yeah, fair.
That said, my first pick, I did a little pairing here from Tori Peters. I'm sure many of you have heard of Detransition Baby, so I just want to quick mention that. But if you haven't read it, incredible book. We did it as a book club here, I think not long after it came out in 2021. And it's the lives of three women, transgender and cisgender, collide after an unexpected pregnancy forces them to confront their deepest desires. So, you can find out more about that one. But Tori put out, this came out in March of last year. It's called Stag Dance. And it is like it's a boundary pushing follow up to Detransition Baby. It's a very interesting collection. Like I love to play with form every once in a while. And so it's a collection of one novel and three stories surrounding that novel. It uses Peter's keen eye for the rough edges of community and desire to push the limits of trans writing. In Stag Dance, the titular novel, a group of restless lumberjacks working in an illegal winter logging outfit plan a dance that some of them will volunteer to attend as women. When the broadest, strongest, plainest of the axemen announces his intention to dance as a woman, he finds himself caught in a strange rivalry with a pretty young Jack, provoking a cascade of obsession, jealousy, and betrayal that will culminate on the big night in an astonishing vision of gender and transition. The three startling stories surrounding Stag Dance are Infect Your Friends and Loved Ones, which imagines a gender apocalypse brought about by an unstable ex girlfriend. Then The Chaser, a secret romance between roommates at a Quaker boarding school, brings out intrigue and cruelty. And then the last story, The Masker, a party weekend on the Vegas Strip turns dark when a young crossdresser must choose between two guides, a handsome mystery man who objectifies her in thrilling ways, or a cynical veteran trans woman offering unglamorous sisterhood. Acidly funny and breathtaking in its scope, with the inventive audacity of George Saunders or Jennifer Egan, Stag Dance provokes, unsettles, and delights. I love a chance to also have like a mishmash, I guess to say, like to
Yeah, I
have a
was gonna
novel,
say
but
that's a fantastic mix.
right. So I like it when books, I guess, play with us a little bit of
Mhm.
you're getting everything. Like, you can just kind
Mhm.
of have whatever experience you want, and I think you can read the stories separately. So even if you wanted to either jump around or kind of play around, but yeah,
That's amazing. No, and I also
yeah,
love the cover on this one. I feel like
it's
I've been seeing
so
it everywhere.
good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's just it's so good. It's so iconic. I am gonna go with one of my most recent favorite, like,
Ooh,
queer books that I've read because it grapples with identity labels and also how our perception of, queerness has changed over the years, and that is Perfume and Pain by Anna Dorn. I had been seeing this book everywhere for a while, and I kept saying, I need to pick this up. And I finally did. And oh my God, it follows a main character who's a lesbian. She is a writer, an author, and we are meeting her when she has been sort of canceled online for saying something at a, book launch event with another queer moderator who was, more of the current times, I would say. And some of her perception of herself and queerness has kind of become, in some ways, outdated to the, current sphere of people. And
yeah,
I think it did a really great job of sort of touching on some of the identity politics and just like, you know, political correctness that we find ourselves obsessed with. But she also, deals with the importance of like not erasing like the past as well and how
yeah,
we thought of ourselves previously and how, not everything needs to be sapphic, you can just be a lesbian and vice versa. Like, you know,
right.
as a bisexual woman, I loved seeing that representation and sort of the differences as well, because I think we get so caught up in like finding ourselves in some representation, but we don't allow just the various different representations to exist. But even aside from that, this book is a bit of a satire on the pulp lesbian fiction of like the 80s and 90s, where like it's written by a man and like the lesbians die at the end. But this is by, a queer woman, and she's like
Yeah.
reclaiming this genre with like these obsessive lesbian characters, which I loved. Like they were just so messy, and I loved it.
No, that sounds that has immediately the cover alone, I was already like, "Oh, I'll
Yes.
be reading this." But then that
Hmm.
description, I'm like, "Oh, yes, please." I mean, the one of the things that came to mind for me was the YouTube space, because
Hmm.
there are so many brilliant creators right now who have been established and have been doing it, and it's across all like kind of sections of YouTube. But then we also still have those OG creators who are celebrating 10, 15, 20 years on the platform. And you think of like the ones that have been able to evolve with the times, and then the others who have that kind of like, we didn't
Old
learn.
school.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
right, maybe not even we didn't learn, but like what's like hot for the kids right now versus what like
Yes.
like, because we're all also on different journeys in life. I mean,
Mhm.
it's so interesting to think of like, you said reclaiming when you were talking about
Mhm.
it, and the things that I know I've reclaimed over the years, that like even just the fact that we describe books as queer. Like,
Yeah.
I think because there are still some people who aren't comfortable with that
Yes,
word.
yes.
And I
Which
guess
is
I should,
fair,
which is
because
fair.
there's historical reasons behind
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. And you know, it wasn't the primary one when I was a kid that was being
Yeah.
thrown, but it's so different to see that, and that commentary is so smart, but also right, that concept of like, can't I just be a lesbian? Or it also made me think of, which you and I still have to talk about, heated rivalry, the
Ooh,
obsession
yes.
but the obsession with like these two little gay boys by just, random group of people.
Yes, 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 exactly. And also on the note of heated rivalry, like, I think
Please.
the
I'm
element
taking
of
credit for
just
that, by the way, Jananie. Miss, I'm not gonna watch it.
truly, me and my friends were, like, locked in every
Mhm.
weekend, just
Mhm.
ready to watch this. Um And it was just so wonderful. No, but I was thinking about how heated rivalry and this concept of like everyone wanting to like immediately put labels to the characters and even to the actors. And I saw this coming up with when Bridgerton season 5 got announced with Francesca and Michaela. And I think sometimes we just get too caught up in the labels sometimes, and we just don't
Right.
let the characters just exist, you know?
Yeah. I think there's also something to be said about like, you and I have had some conversations about this. And I know this season there have been several conversations of like, sometimes we see ourselves in books that might not have been written with us in mind, but we're still learning that. So, like, you could take anything from that as a bisexual woman and say, this spoke to me for these reasons. And it doesn't have to be like, although we've got Ilya, but like, it doesn't have to be a bisexual story. You know, there's so
Yes,
much to
yes.
take from it.
Yes, I think so. I think that's what it is. Like, we sometimes get too caught up in just finding our specific identity, but we can still learn from like other
Right.
ones. Like I learned from this, character who is like full lesbian in Perfume and Pain. So, and I think that's important. We can still empathize with the parts of someone's story, even if it's not the full story.
Ugh, well, love that. Monday brain as we record is I'm like, transition, next book. Uh, but no, it's so true. There's so much we can always be taking away. And for those of you who are wonderful, supportive people, not only of the show, but of the queer community, these stories will still speak to you because that is what good writing does. It speaks to all audiences. So not only thank you for listening, but thank you for checking out these books as well. My next pick, because who would I be if not queer horror, is Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. I've seen this on a lot of lists. It came out in 2023. I know this had to have been on my like January book picks for 2023. But I mean, it was the best horror book of the year from Esquire and Book Riot. Like, anyway, Tell Me I'm Worthless is a dark, unflinching haunted house story. You know, I'm a sucker for a haunted house story that confronts both supernatural and real world horrors through the lens of modern day trans experience. 3 years ago, Alice spent one night in an abandoned house with her friends, Ela and Hannah. Since then, Alice's life has spiraled. She lives a haunted existence, selling videos of herself for money, going to parties she hates, drinking herself to sleep. Memories of that night torment Alice, but when Ela asks her to return to the house, to go past the keep out sign over the sick earth where teenagers dare each other to venture, Alice knows she must go. Together, Alice and Ela must face the horrors that happened there, must pull themselves apart from the inside out, put their differences aside, and try to rescue Hannah, whom the house has chosen to make its own. Cutting, disruptive, and darkly funny, Tell Me I'm Worthless is a vital work of trans fiction that examines the devastating effects of trauma and how fascism makes us destroy ourselves and each other. Didn't
That
think I
that
was going
last
there,
line,
huh?
that last line, I was like, what?
Yeah, so I mean, I think number one, the like pull quote on it is from Gretchen Felker Martin, author of Manhunt. Gretchen called it ambitious, brutal, and brilliant. I think if the title alone doesn't tell you that like you need to be ready to walk into this one, I hope the description also gave you like some warnings. But of course, as always, like look up books before you dive in. But it's so good. Oh, it's so good.
So good. Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. And actually, my next pick is actually related. It's also a horror. And I saw that Tell Me I'm Worthless was comped to Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, which I love. I love Shirley Jackson.
A perfect author, perfect book, Hill House.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. The undertones to that one is just so good. But my pick is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. One of my all-time favorite. I love Alexis Henderson like always. Every one of her books is incredible, but this one was actually my first introduction to her, and it involves sapphic vampires, which is something I always wanted.
Vampires.
And then I
Yes.
finally got it. It is set in this sort of fantasy world where there's this like upper class in the north and then this lower class in the south. And this young woman decides to become one of these like blood maidens or blood maids of this upper class woman in the north. And she's one of many blood maidens who basically offer their blood to this woman to keep her young and beautiful and whatever else. So it's not like specifically called vampirism or whatever, but there is something interesting and sketchy going on because, they're in this big Gothic mansion and the upper class woman has all of these people in her life who come for parties and all these different things. And she seems to have this sort of magnetic control over the blood maidens. And the main character also befriends the other blood maidens, or starts off as sort of enemies with them and becomes friends. But it was such a nice subversion, I think, of the usually very heteronormative vampire trope, which I loved so much. And I love that it was also, it was, in some ways to me like a feminist take because it was this woman in power and in charge, but it still tapped into the toxicity of something like that when there's such a power imbalance. So overall, 10 out of 10. Like, it had a great romance, but also just that chilling, horrific feeling of like, there's something else lurking underneath all of this.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
that sounds so good. I can see the cover. I still haven't, I know it's on my list. I still haven't gotten to it yet, but I remember when that one came out.
You need to.
I
It's
know.
fantastic.
I know. And this is where I get to shamelessly plug Hungerstone again, just as the like, if you need more vampire lesbianism.
I do. I never don't need that.
I never
So
don't
I will
need
be
it.
picking it up.
But you're so right. I think the other thing about this is like, as we get through our lists, you'll see that, yeah, we're calling out queer books, and some of them are going to be, air quotes for the listeners, gayer than others. But but I think that's kind of what's beautiful as we start to see the balance. I know we talked about this with Asian literature, that like the goal isn't to be, this is an Asian book, this is a gay book. The goal is like, these are books. You can see yourself within them, but also you don't have to see yourself within them to enjoy them. And I know I'm like stuck on that point, but it really feels important to hammer home that like, you don't
Yes.
know what you're missing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like whenever I even talk about this one, I usually lead with the vampire thing first because if you like vampires, you'll like it.
Right. Exactly. Well, this is where I get to continue my mission of trying to get people to read graphic novels. Because again, who would I be? This is North Ranger by Ray Tercero, who is Rex Ogle's alter ego for a lot of his young adult work. It's a swoony and spooky teen summer romance graphic novel set on a Texas ranch where 16-year-old Cade Munoz finds himself falling for the ranch owner's mysterious and handsome son, only to discover that he may be harboring a dangerous secret. Cade has always loved to escape into the world of a good horror movie. Tiny print today, y'all. After all, horror movies are scary, but to Cade, a closeted queer Latino teen growing up in rural Texas, real life can be way scarier. When Cade is sent to spend the summer working as a ranch hand to help earn extra money for his family, he's horrified. Cade hates everything about the ranch, from the early mornings to the mountains of horse poop he has to clean up. The only silver lining is the company of the two teens who live there, in particular, the ruggedly handsome and enigmatic Henry. But as unexpected sparks begin to fly between Cade and Henry, things get complicated. Henry is reluctant to share the details of his mother's death, and Cade begins to wonder what else he might be hiding. Inspired by the gothic romance of Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey, and perfect for fans of Heartstopper and Bloom, comes a modern love story so romantic, it's scary.
I love that. That's too many things I like in one sentence.
Jananie, I'm going to get you with one of these.
You will.
One day.
You will. You will.
One day, you're going to like pop up on screen with a graphic novel in hand. But I love Rex Ogle. I think he is fantastic. And the stories he shares are so important, especially for like our middle grade and young adult readers. The books are for everyone, no matter the age. And I think, again, like, if you want to try to do some Jane Austen, go this route. Go this route instead. Go for the updated retellings. And what a better way than with like gay ranch hands.
You know what? I love that. I'm sure Jane Austen would have loved it too.
I want to believe that she would. And if she's
Yeah.
cool with it, then I've got some mad respect for Jane Austen.
In our heads, she's cool with it.
In our heads.
Yes. Love it. Well, you'll be proud of me because my next rec is a graphic novel. And
Oh,
I think I actually did this rec for the AAPI month
oh yeah.
uh episode. I don't remember for sure, but
Oh,
I think
Tall
I
Water?
forgot to even Tall
Okay.
Water by S.J. Sindhu. I actually forgot to mention that there's even a queer aspect to this book because there's so many things going on in this book. But this is one of those wonderful moments where it's a book about, this character's identity and so many other things, but also it is a very normalized, beautiful representation of just queerness within someone's life and how it fits within someone's life. And it doesn't have to be the thing or, it
Yes.
doesn't have to be a queer book, quotation marks. And
Yeah.
it's still fantastic and amazing. But this book is Tall Water by S.J. Sindhu, who is one of my favorite, adult authors, but she's been writing some middle grade to YA graphic novels recently. And this was the most recent release of hers. And it's set in 2004. And it follows our main character as she journeys to Sri Lanka for the first time. Her parents met as like sort of social workers in Sri Lanka years ago. And her mother ended up staying in Sri Lanka during the war, working at this orphanage while her father took the main character back to, I think, Canada, and she's been raised there. So she's never met her mother in her adult life. And so she's, going there to meet her for the first time and sort of reconnect with her mother,
Yeah.
but also like just this culture that she's never really known. There's this beautiful moment where she's like learning how to, eat Tamil food and like with her hands, because that's culturally how we do it. And she had never really grown up with that in Canada because she didn't
Yeah.
have that figure in her life. But she also meets a very cute girl while she's in Sri Lanka who helps out at the orphanage. And it's just like one of those beautiful, beautiful things where you can find joy even in the sadness, even in a difficult situation, you can find something beautiful. And so yeah, it was just wonderful. And there's also like the tsunami aspect to this book that comes
Right.
in later, but it's overall like a really it's sad stuff that's happening, and it reckons with the difficulty of being part of a diaspora and
Mhm.
being from a country that has all of this political upheaval, but it's also a really joyful and beautiful book. So yeah.
Well, and when we talked about it last, I didn't know the queer aspect of it, but just the thought of like, oh, there's so much pain and feeling
Hmm.
abandoned. But then the flip side to also going of like, you're basically meeting your mother for the first time and you're coming in like guns loaded of, oh, I have to share so much about myself. Some things she
Yes.
may not even be okay with or like
Yes.
about me.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. And it was one of those like beautiful, just like accepting
yeah.
stories. Like there was no real like coming out moment. It's just wonderful. It was beautiful.
I
It
love
healed
that.
something in my heart.
I would I have to tell you, it's on my shelf right now to read. So
Yay! I'm so happy. Of course, it's
it's
the
your
graphic
fault.
novel that you
Y
pick up first.
Look, maybe, but, sometimes we need an easier
Yeah,
lift.
fair.
So how about I bring us, like, a weird one? I love a weird one. This is Jackson Alone by Jose Ando. This one came out beginning of this year, January 2026. We are following four Black Japanese gay men who team up against a culture where discrimination is deep-seated and revenge is just a click away. Nobody at the corporate offices of Athletus, Japan knows much about the massage therapist Jackson, but rumors abound. He used to work as a model. He likes to party. He's mixed race, half Japanese, half somewhere in Africa. He might be gay. Fueling the gossip is the sudden appearance of a violent pornographic video featuring a man who looks a lot like Jackson. When Jackson serendipitously meets three other queer mixed race guys, he learns he's not the only one being targeted. Together, they concoct a plan, find out who's responsible, and in the meantime, switch identities and play tricks on people. A boyfriend, a boss, all people who have wronged them, exploiting the fact that nobody can seem to tell them apart. A short, blistering gut punch of a novel, Jackson Alone is at turns satirical and deadpan, angry and tender, a frank exploration of identity, race, queerness, and discrimination in contemporary Japan that announces Jose Ando as a singular new talent in the global literary scene. This book is incredible. It is quick. It's a lot of thought-provoking things. And of course, yes, there is a violent pornographic video. I don't remember it being described in any sort of like graphic or vivid sense. So
Mm.
like, while that's kind of like the impetus to start them on this journey to find each other, it's not like central or drawn out or anything. So if that's something that you kind of keep in mind, to
Mhm.
me, it was not much of a plot point because, like I said, this book is moving quickly. Um, but yeah, and it has like a Chuck Palahniuk-esque like weird end where you're like, how did what's happening? How did we
What
get
did I
here?
just
But like,
read? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I thought it was just like really satisfying.
Nice. I love
Yeah,
that. That sounds amazing.
yeah. So
Um,
little something weird.
okay, I guess I'll go with my weird pick. I'm gonna go with Big Swiss by Jen Began. I'm never not recommending this book. I feel like it's just one of my favorite, like, chaotic queers book. It follows a main character, Greta, who is sort of restarting her life over. She's in her 40s and she is working as a transcriber for a sex therapist. And she finds herself falling in love with one of the sex therapist's patients, who she lovingly names Big Swiss, and who happens to live in the same, city or town. And she ends up using the information she knows from the sessions to perhaps win Big Swiss's heart.
Oops.
And oops, yeah. And it's one of those situations where, like, at no point is anyone really talking about their sexuality, like, early on, even though, there's the sex therapy sessions and whatever else. But they were falling in love, like, kind of organically in this, well, not so organically because Greta's sort of orchestrating things, but they are falling in love. And it's just this sort of satirical, funny, chaotic take on what it feels like to be obsessed with someone so much and just wanting them to see you because you see so much of them. And I thought it was so beautiful. It was also like a book that, had some mental health prep,
Yeah.
which I think I also mentioned in that episode,
Mhm.
perhaps. So yeah, I love a book that does multiple things for me.
Right. When they can check lots of boxes, we'll take
Yes.
it.
Mhm.
Um, no, I'm looking at like, oh, got time. I'm gonna pull some of my extras up. I'll give another weird one. I only read this one recently, but it came out in 2022. And I think this might have been the start of the curve to take us into like reality show or reality dating competition show books, but through the vein of like horror. This is Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen. If you've seen the cover, you would remember. But we're on this season of The Catch, where contestants must compete for love and their lives. When the final four women in a competition for an aloof, somewhat sleazy bachelor's heart arrive on a mysterious island in the Pacific Northwest, they prepare themselves for another week of extreme sleep deprivation, invasive interviews, and of course, the salacious drama eager viewers nationwide tune in to devour. Each woman came on The Catch for her own reasons: brand sponsorships, followers, and yes, even love. And they've all got their eyes steadfastly trained on their respective prizes. Enter Patricia, a temperamental and woefully misunderstood local living alone in the dark, verdant woods and desperate for connection. Through twists as unexpected as they are wildly entertaining, the self absorbed cast and jaded crew each make her acquaintance atop the island's tallest and most desolate peak, finding themselves at the center of an action packed thriller that is far from scripted and only few will make the final cut. A whirlwind romp careening toward a last girl standing conclusion and a scathing indictment of contemporary American media culture, Patricia Wants to Cuddle is also a love story between star-crossed lesbians who rise above their intolerant town, a deeply ambivalent woman and her budding self-actualization, and a group of misfit islanders forging community against all odds.
Wow.
Go
You always
wild.
have such like a fantastic trailer narrator voice when you know, recount the synopses of books, and I'm like, "Ooh, yes."
Uh-huh. They really should get me recording, like, book
They
trailers.
should. They really should. You have,
What
like,
should
the
you
low
read this
voice
month?
for it. Yeah.
Put me on, like I'll be the book phone instead of movie phone. Taking
Love.
taking that to the app developers. Thank you very much.
New feature announced.
New feature in Libby. Joe tells you what the book is about.
I think it would get people to, you know, borrow more books.
I hope
I love
so.
it.
It's all we can ask for.
Mhm. Yes. Okay, I am going to take a hard left on my next rec, I think. So my next rec is going to be Comedic Timing by Upasana Bharith. Um, so I should say that this book is from a publisher called 831 Stories, that has been publishing like these sort of short novella-esque romances. And this one is a book about a queer woman, a bisexual woman who has only been with women before, and she has gone through a hard breakup and she's moving to a new city. I think she moves to New York. And she is sort of navigating being in her mid 20s, starting a new job, you know, getting over this previous relationship, but also having the weird experience of now kind of falling for being interested in a man. And as a bisexual woman, sometimes you're like, what this isn't fair. Um you know, the
Yeah.
women are just so much more beautiful. But sometimes you find yourself in those situations. And it was one of those really wonderful experiences of reading a book and realizing that like just because who you are with currently, like even if that's, you know, a man and you're a bisexual woman, that doesn't invalidate your overall queerness, which I think was the important part. And I think she also grapples with, you know, that perception of herself and how, you know, other people also have a different perception of her just because she's with a man. And there's also the element of her navigating a, you know, quote unquote heterosexual relationship um, as a bi woman and, you know, how that affects the partner and, you know, how, you know, them coming out to them and, you know, them being accepting of you. So it was just overall really great, and it, like, packed a punch for such a short book.
I love that because I think I mean, what 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, whatever it may be in the world right now, but, like, I think there is so much when we start to think of erasure, that concept of who I am with in this moment does not determine who I am with overall,
Mhm,
and I think it is doubly easy for bi women to be negated
mhm.
because so many people want to go, well, I'm sure your boyfriend would love the idea that you like women. Like, it's so
Yes.
easy to become disgusting so quickly.
Yes.
And I think that invalidates any concept of like I feel bad for whoever they're with because like you don't understand what like jealousy is. I mean, it can be difficult to conceive of like
Yeah.
every like I don't know, maybe it's in my own
No,
anxiety
you
brain, but like everyone's a threat.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, and I think it's actually interesting that you put it that way because,
Mhm.
you know, it speaks to some of the inherent, you know, misogyny that goes into how we view bi women versus bisexual men. Though I do
Mhm.
think we don't have enough representation of bisexual men just in general,
Right.
um, which I would love to see more of. But I do think there is this perception which comes from deep-seated misogyny and patriarchy that, like, you
Mhm.
know, if she's a bisexual, you know, woman with a man, you know, like the interest is just threesomes or like something like that, right? Which is just so beyond the point. And I think also one thing that I has appealed to me over recent years, someone said this to me was like, just because you know you're in a straight seeming relationship, that doesn't erase how queerness affects your identity as just like a
Right.
person, irrespective of like who you're with or like
Mhm.
even just the idea of being attracted to you know someone of the same
Mhm.
sex. It's the idea of like feeling different within your body, within your
Within your
identity, within
body.
yourself, and how
Yes.
alienating that is, and how like you know you feel just so out of place. And I think
Yes.
all queer people feel that feeling of feeling out of place, being not part of the norm. And that's not something that gets erased, even if you're in a straight seeming relationship.
1,000,000%. And like, thank you. Like, I'm just sitting here like, yes, speak on that because it's so true. I don't think people understand that a lot of what we're saying is because effectively there's cognitive dissonance.
Hmm.
And when other people are placing their pressures on us, it doesn't resolve that dissonance. And then when they
Hmm.
try to take parts away from us, it all just like it all builds and it all adds. And it's, I don't know, like it must be so nice to just like one thing.
Yeah,
like
to just be simple.
it must be so nice. I mean, like, I use like the capital Q queer because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what anyone or anything is
Which is
anymore.
fair.
I could
Hmm.
be a being from another planet. Like
Yeah.
I am just me kind of running my world. And I at some point, you know, like early on was like pansexual made a lot of sense. Like that was the word
Hmm.
that best fit for me. And then in the overall conversation, it was like, you know, everything really feels a little more fluid and flowing and
Yes.
kind of like taking that big step back where I'm like, that's that's why I said like I could be an alien from another planet because I'm just like, there are days where I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
what I feel like across the board.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to the like, oh, well, it's the people in my life that matter
Yeah.
most to me. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think that's like a you know, of a fairly universal feeling even when you think you know the label, you're like,
right,
no, actually maybe I'm
right,
wrong. Or maybe there's
right.
something else I haven't considered. Or, you know, maybe I just haven't found, met the person who's gonna make me think, oh wait,
Right.
no.
Oh,
Yeah. So
exactly. And what the label means and what it means to you versus me and
yeah.
what the
And
like
what it means
12-year-olds online are telling me that I'm wrong
exactly.
about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I'm like, yeah, I use queer because it makes me feel good. But if it makes you not feel good, I'm sorry about that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. We just gotta
oh,
do whatever feels authentic
I,
to
I
each of us.
I just remember in like 2015, the online fighting between pan and bi being like,
Oh my God,
they're the
yes.
same thing, they're not the same thing. Like, what?
Just let it go.
right. Just like, just let us breathe.
Yeah.
I actually I just kind of want to vibe. Like, that's all.
Yeah, literally.
I am going to quick mention two titles because I know I've definitely talked about both of them, but they are like unrelated in energy, but I think as experiences should absolutely be read. The first is You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. This came out in September of last year. This is like body horror to the extreme. I would approach this with caution. There is a lot of graphic violence. There is a lot happening in this book. And Andrew Joseph White has like the content warnings at the beginning of the book. Take them to heart. It's a powerful book. It's gorgeous. And it's essentially about identity, survival, and transformation against an alien invasion in rural West Virginia.
I'm sorry. I just what?
Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, festering masses of worms and flies have taken root in dark corners across Appalachia. In exchange for unwavering loyalty and fresh corpses, these hives offer a few struggling humans salvation, a fresh start. It's an offer that none refuse. Crane is grateful. He is among the hive's followers, and he has found a chance to transition, to never speak again, to live a life that won't destroy him. He even met Levi, a handsome ex Marine and brutal killer who treats him like a real man, mostly. But when Levi gets Crane pregnant and the hive demands the child's birth no matter the cost, Crane's desperation to make it stop will drive the community that saved him into a devastating spiral that can only end in blood. You Weren't Meant to Be Human is a deeply personal horror, a visceral statement about the lives of marginalized people in a hostile world. And yeah. So anyone who has like pregnancy fear and terror, that is exactly kind of this body horror, but there is a lot of just, it's a lot in the best way possible, but you need to be in like a good headspace to receive it.
It's crazy you recommended that because I'm like, that is exactly what I want right now. Um,
Oh, okay.
I feel like I've seen this book around so much, and I
It's
love the
worth it.
cover as well. But what you said about like the body horror of pregnancy, I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, I would like
Yeah.
a book about that. As I mature into the years where you're like,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah,
love
it's that
that.
whole, like, fighting for your body to be the body you want it to be,
Mhm.
and at the same time losing the autonomy to
Yeah,
maintain
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it taps into some of the horror of, like, losing control of your body, which I find
Right.
so fascinating generally because it not only pregnancy, but also, like, when you think about, like, chronic illness or that kind of thing, like, this idea that your body is not your own or it doesn't listen to you the way that you would like. So yeah, I love that. My next pick is actually a retelling of a classic, and I loved so the book is Local Heavens by Cam Fajardo. And the log line or the one line is it's a cyberpunk retelling of Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And taps into the like, late stage capitalism and all of that. But and it also has a buy for buy love square. Which I got so excited when I heard that because if you have read The Great Gatsby, Fitzgerald's writing is like, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful. But I swear the man is so good at creating weirdly sexual undertones between characters I don't even think he intended to.
Yeah.
Um, and
That's
if
why I
you,
wonder, like, the amount of people who love The Great Gatsby because they read it in high school
yeah,
was just, like, the undercurrent that we didn't understand what was happening to us at the time.
yes, exactly. And you cannot convince me that Nick's obsession with Gatsby is anything, l- you know,
You can't tell me
less
that's
than
anything hetero. Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's
Like
not.
you saying that's platonic is wild. But yeah, so
Sure.
this book, really delves into that relationship, but also, acknowledges the other like relationships going on. So that, Nick and Jordan and the Jordan and Daisy vibes too. And then the Daisy and Gatsby, obviously. So it still taps into all of the major themes of the book, as well as, that late stage capitalism and injustice idea of like the differences in wealth and like the new money, old money situation and this desperate obsession with being with the object of your desires. But it's also like a cyberpunk novel, so it's like kind of Blade Runner esque.
Yeah.
And Nick is a half Filipino cyberspace hacker. And it's very cool. It's very cool. The science fiction aspect is fantastic, but it was just like so gay and I loved it.
And, like, thanks, we need that.
Yeah.
As you said, like, "Oh, that's exactly what I need right now." You finished that, and I'm like, "And this is exactly what
Yes.
I need right now." When I was looking at the cover, I went, "Huh, well,
Yeah. Very
that's got
bisexual
something in
lighting.
there, very bisexual lighting." And then you share that description, I'm like,
Yes.
"Okay, that's next up." My penultimate book, like I said, this is one that I've definitely mentioned this year. It's the new TJ Klune. It's We Burn So Bright. Who would I be? Like, Jananie, who would I be if not?
Truly.
But it's a
You're
standalone.
consistent.
I'm Thank you. Like, you know what you're gonna get when you come to this show. We come to this place for Joe to recommend us horror and gay things. Uh, I'll put on a Nicole Kidman AMC commercial outfit and just record a trailer. Why not? Anyway, this is a standalone novel from TJ Klune. It's quick. It follows an elder gay couple on an end of the world road trip. I am a sucker for a road trip story. I don't know if it's the like 2015 supernatural part of my brain that just enjoys a road trip story. I'm also loving making Janany laugh. So sorry, y'all. But the road stretched out before them. No other cars, just the headlights on the blacktop. Above, the cracked moon and a kaleidoscope sky. Husbands Don and Rodney have lived a good long life. Together, they've experienced the highest highs of love and family, the lows so low that they felt like the end of the world. Now, the world is ending for real. A rogue black hole is coming for the Earth, and in a month, everything and everyone they've ever known will be gone. Suddenly, after 40 years together, Don and Rodney are out of time. They're in a race against the clock to make it from Maine to Washington State to take care of some unfinished business before it's all over. On the road, they meet those who refuse to believe death is coming and those who rush to meet it. But there are also people living their final days as best they know how: impromptu weddings, bright burning bonfires, shared meals, and new friends. As the black hole draws near among ball lightning and under a cracked moon in a kaleidoscope sky, Don and Rodney will look back on their lives and ask if their best was good enough. Is it enough to burn bright if nothing comes from the ashes? If you've been sleeping on his standalone books, it's time to wake up. you gotta read them.
Truly, I need to read the rest. Oh my God, that sounds fantastic.
Right? Supernatural road trip story.
Love it. Okay, this will be my penultimate pick as well.
Okay.
And it's gonna be Meeting Millie by Claire Ashton. This one I think was a self-pubbed or indie pub book. And I discovered it because I was, asking people on social for like just queer book recs with like just two women, figuring themselves out and being just outrageously in love. And this was the book. It is set at Oxford. And it follows two main characters, Charlotte and Millie, who were besties in college. And Charlotte was like out and proud and whatever, knew who she was. Millie was, the straight friend, bestie, but things end on a weird note for them at the end of their college years. And the two of them don't speak for many, many years until Millie is back in town in Oxford and they're forced to interact again. It kind of gave me like the Persuasion feeling of like, things don't work out and then they're back in your life and you're like, the yearning, the longing, it's all still there. And this was that book. But what I also liked was that it delved into a character who like didn't know what her identity was. And that was very scary to her. And it was something that she didn't have the bandwidth to deal with when she was younger in their college years. And it wasn't until much, much later after she's gone through, so many different things, and, different relationships and stuff that she comes to understand herself. And she's able to take that step with, this amazing friend who actually she loved from the beginning. And it was so good. And it also has like a few steamy bits as well towards the end, which was fantastic. So if you're looking for like a sort of yearning sapphic romance, this is the one.
Ooh, I love that. There are so many good like undercurrents in there that you could just sink into so easily. Well, my final pick, I went the cozy route. This is Field Guide for the Formerly Villainous by Autumn K. England. The title intrigued me. The cover, I think, is stunning. This will be out. Y'all can read it now. I read an advance copy of this. This is not out at the time of recording, but it'll be out May 26th. It's billed like from the top as Stardew Valley meets Studio Ghibli in a charming, cozy fantasy about healing, redemption, and the subtle magic of living simply.
I love it already.
Right? Right. But it's perfect for fans of Spell Treason Without Tea and The Spell Shop. Welcome home, weary traveler. When Oakland Nettlewood accidentally joined an evil, world-ending cult, mind control magic forced them to do unspeakable things. Years later, the realm's heroes have finally saved the day, defeated the villain, and shattered the last remnants of the spell, leaving destruction in their wake. And so, with a spell-damaged memory and a whole bushel of trauma, Oakland escapes to a small farm on the edge of Mossley's Rest and swears an oath. After all the things they were forced to do with their magic, they will never use it again, ever. The no-nonsense ghost granny who lives in Oakland's house has other ideas. As she coaxes Oakland out of their shell and back into the world, they find companionship, a grumpy horse and a very good dog, friendship, a local bard and a magical baker who should just kiss already, and tentative romance, a paladin librarian who makes Oakland's heart come alive for the first time in ages. Magic even seems possible again, though strictly for foraging magical mushrooms and protecting the farm from bugs. Healing comes in gentle waves, and Oakland doesn't have to do it alone. So, what does it mean when an inquisitor comes to town to hunt former cultists, just as Oakland begins to think maybe, just maybe, they deserve a happy ending after all? Uh-huh.
Love. That sounds wonderful.
It's absolutely delightful. I know I've talked about it, but like I got into finally reading like Legends and Lattes and Cozy
Mhm.
and Spell Shop is gorgeous. Like I feel like I finally found my fantasy vibe because there are so many things that check boxes for me when it comes to fantasy, but I've never been able to like fall into it like I can with Cozy because like
Yeah.
I need lower stakes.
Yes,
I just
yes.
need lower stakes.
I also like that Cozy, like, just deals with more regular people in
Yes.
fantasy. Like, it's like the side
Yes.
characters, you're like, I wonder how this part of this world works. And no one ever explains it in the high fantasy with all the kings and the knights and the whatever and the battles.
Right. And like
Yeah.
I love court intrigue for the people who want court intrigue
Mhm.
and I'm all for it. But like, right, I love that it's the background characters. I
Mhm.
love that it's just like what's going on over here at this inn? Who's this paladin librarian and what are they all about? Like, yeah,
Yes.
I'm a sucker for it. And
It's wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah. And it has like that wish fulfillment vibe where you're like, I could be that
Yes.
character in this fantasy world, you know? The one not dying.
Right. Right. That's maybe the best thing about cozy fantasy is being able to go like, oh, this is a fantasy world I could actually be in
Live
because
in, yeah.
it's like reality set, even when
Yeah.
in like Legends and Lattes, when they have to have an actual fight, you see the trials and tribulations, and you're like, oh well, with the right group of people, I could
Mhm.
do that as well. Like,
Yes.
so
Yes.
and maybe it's my like long love of found family stories or like
Yes.
wow,
So good.
we almost made it through the queer books, like the Pride Month celebration, without talking about found family, Jananie.
True.
Could you
Oh my
imagine the
god.
riots in the streets?
Yeah.
But
Truly. No, good point. Okay, well, my last pick is actually one I haven't read yet, but I am so excited to pick this one up. So that is Devil of the Deep by Valencia Jean Francois. This is a book that was actually, I think, indie published before, and then it recently got republished, traditionally published by one of the bindery imprints, Left Unread Books. And this book, guys, it's got trans rep, pirates, mermaids, specifically Haitian mermaids. And it just sounds like everything I want in this combination, of books. Like there's
mhm,
just this like resurgence of mermaids. And as someone who is like chronically obsessed with The Little Mermaid and The Little Mermaid 2,
absolutely.
this is
And
exactly
thank
what I
you
wanted.
for
Yeah.
letting The Little Mermaid 2 be heard.
Right? Oh my God. It's incredible. Also like the mother-daughter aspect of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna read you a little bit of the description of this book because I'm not doing it justice. So Lou watched the love of his life walk the plank and sink into the inky black depths of the sea. Mena was dead, or so he thought. 5 years later, Lieutenant Lou Ortega, dutiful fleet officer, embarks on a mission to hunt down a powerful talisman now in the hands of a runaway mermaid. On his quest, he discovers that Nena is still alive. Fierce and cunning and as breathtaking as ever, Nena's won enough bloody sword fights as a pirate captain to earn the nickname Devil of the Deep. She has come to reject the system of order that Lou clings to, and worse, she's protecting the very quarry of Pearl Highwater, who has defied the all powerful sea god and might hold a valuable key to finding her people's lost island. When the tides and fades bring them together, Nena, Lou, and Pearl must choose their loyalties, find their courage, and race to protect the island from false gods and forces of evil, or risk unleashing an ancient curse that could destroy them all. So
Now
good.
I know I just said I like my cozy fantasy, but I could get into that.
Yes, yes.
Because once you make it like that pirate story,
Yes.
I'm a big Legend of Zelda fan, and you put me
Ooh,
on the high
true.
seas, like any
I
like
love it.
that blend of things. I'm right
Yes.
back in, and
Ugh,
it sounds
obsessed. Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm like, literally, it's gonna be picked up this week. I'm ready for it.
Oh, as you should.
Mhm.
Well, Jananie, thank you for sharing with me today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for recommending so many great books.
Oh, well, thank you for recommending so many great books. Oh my gosh. Listeners, as always, you can find all of the titles linked in the show notes. Make sure you follow, subscribe wherever you're doing your podcast thing so you never miss an episode. You won't want to miss next week where we celebrate Audiobook Month. And I, on Monday, will be having a conversation with 3 incredible narrators. Jananie, would you like a sneak preview of who they are?
Yes, please. Do
Okay.
share.
Michael Crouch, Saskia Marlebelt.
Ooh.
Oh, and maybe you might have heard of him, Teddy Hamilton.
Oh, God. Wow. You've got a lineup there.
So make sure you're following so you don't
Damn.
miss it. And then, of course, we'll also be recommending incredible audiobooks for you to add to your TBL, to be listened list. Wow. On the
Oh.
fly. I know. I was like, is that right?
Damn. Did you script that?
No, I have. I actually have. I'm doing this one just like
You're
free
just
fall.
doing it on the fly.
And I
Yeah.
think they can tell. Thank
No,
you
you're
all.
flawless as ever.
Oh, thank you. It's sheer determination and anxiety. Well, thank you all for joining us, and happy reading.
Happy reading.
You can sample and borrow the books from today's episode in the Libby app, or if you're a librarian, find them for purchase in Overdrive Marketplace. Book Lounge by Libby is a proud Evergreen Podcast signature program. Explore more amazing shows at evergreenpodcasts.com. This podcast is produced and recorded by me, Joe Skelly, with editing by Andrew Alonzo. Our theme music is High Five by Rex Banner, used with permission. Book Lounge by Libby is presented by the Libby app. Learn more at libbylife.com/booklounge.